Hi there, YouTube, and happy Thanksgiving. Today's Kingdom Melody is another one songbook wonder. It was introduced in 1984, and it was so jarring and weird that it had to be deleted in the next version of the songbook because it just freaked everyone out too much. Okay, I totally made that up. Anyway, seriously, it's like two completely separate songs that they just kind of crammed together with no warning whatsoever. That might be okay if you're going for avant-garde or if the songs you're mashing up even are remotely similar, but these two melodies really aren't. One is like a doom-laden funeral dirge, and the other is like a newly minted born-in publisher pooping rainbows. I mean, it is a train wreck. In 1984, this was song number 23. It's called The Bible's Hope for Mankind, and after singing it a few times, my sincere hope is that I am able to get it out of my head. It is full of ghastly earworms.
Dark days are here, man lives in fear, with their expectation as to all creation.
All right, I can see how if you're a real Debbie Downer, I mean a serious negative Nelly, this might be, in fact, how you see the world. Maybe you live in a war-torn region and people really do live in fear. I mean, that does happen. But if you're singing this song, odds are that's not the case for you. Odds are, if you actually sang this song, or pretended to sing it if you were smart, you were a brainwashed, anxious, bored, and unhappy soul, most likely in the United States, living in fear, was worrying about whether you were going to get a beating for not highlighting your watchtower or for goofing off during the meeting or something. And come to think of it, the people with the direst expectations for all creation are actually Jehovah's Witnesses, so...
Having no hope, blindly they grope, as the system nears its end.
Who are they talking about here? I mean, I guess they're talking about all mankind, but specifically worldly people. I mean, non-Jehovah's Witnesses. How presumptuous is this? I mean, how arrogant. Really? Non-Jehovah's Witnesses are blind and without hope. Never mind that they've got all the education, the best jobs, and 401ks and insurance. I mean, they go to churches that have real traditions and do fun things, and they don't have to shun anybody. But the system, meaning the whole world, is about to end, according to the Doomsday cult, the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they've been expecting it any minute now for right now in 150 years. Well, the world just isn't ending, but this dirge is, abruptly. Fasten your seatbelts, here comes a whole nother song.
The Bible gives us a reason for cheer, due to all the proofs that the kingdom is near.
Oh my God, I think I have whiplash. So what is this reason for cheer that the witnesses are so hopped up about here? Why, it's the good news of the kingdom, of course. And what's that all about? Well, their reason for cheer is that they think all those hopeless, groping worldly people they were just singing a dirge about are about to be murdered en masse by Jehovah. Yay! Guys, that's not actually a cheery thought. I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses are about 0.1% of the world's population. Let that sink in for a minute. If they really thought this through and really believed it was going to happen, their thoughts should be anything but cheery about this. I mean, first of all, think of the smell. And second, you have to admit that worldly people are pretty useful to have around. After all, you don't see very many Jehovah's Witness doctors or lawyers or engineers or scientists. I mean, sure, they always did tell us that there would be no need for doctors and lawyers in the news system, but I kind of have a hard time thinking that they would be able to get by without engineers and scientists. I mean, how long do you think it would take them to get the lights on or the crops planted by themselves? How long do you think they could keep a herd of cattle together? Seriously, they have no transferable skills. Now, let's also talk about the grammar in that second line, because it's kind of the elephant in the room right now. Oh, it's bad. It's really bad. First of all, we have to talk about the phrases due to and because of. Now, these are similar but subtly different, and there are grammatical rules associated with these phrases. Basically, due to means the result of or resulting from. Due to is always used after a form of the verb to be, like was or is. Okay? Now, because of is a preposition used to introduce an adverbial phrase and means as a result of. It is not used after a form of to be like was or is. Okay? So does that make sense? So the $1,000,000 question here is, do you see any form of the verb to be in here? Me either. So this should be because of. Now, I know that doesn't fit with the meter, but this is grammar, y'all, and it's not a joke. And furthermore, the word proof is the same in both singular and plural. So the only time you would say proofs and be correct is if you're a mathematician talking about arguments, or if you're in the photography or graphic design business and you're talking about an original image generated for approval of a client. Otherwise, proofs is just wrong. And while we're talking about what's wrong with these lines, let's talk about what proof actually means in this context, because I don't really think they're talking about math or photography. Proof is defined as the effect of evidence sufficient to persuade a reasonable person that a particular fact exists. Now, can anyone please tell me what evidence they have that the kingdom is near? Anyone? New Light doesn't count, because that's just governing body CYA. But not women.
God will wipe every tear. Raise yourselves erect, you have nothing to fear.
Since they're only talking about men, I guess erect isn't a totally inappropriate word here, but it feels pretty inappropriate to sing it. I mean, what are these erect guys crying about anyway? Weren't they just cheering because we were all going to get killed at Armageddon? I mean, I think these people might be bipolar or something.
Life's darksome night, filled with much fright. None can be denying, for all men are dying.
What the hell kind of lives are these people living anyway? Seriously, who uses the word darksome outside of a spaghetti western? And I mean, listen to this crazy shit. Their lives are perpetual Halloween nights, except they aren't allowed to dress up and they think demons are real. If they actually believed what they preach to people, would they really be so scared of the dark? But now we have to talk about grammar again. I know, I'm sorry, but they've gone from just abusing the English language to some sort of weird cultural appropriation here, because this none can be denying business sounds an awful lot like Ebonics to me. Actually, it's lazy songwriting, but it sounds slightly Ebonic, doesn't it? If they were going to be technically correct, they should have said none can deny. I know that doesn't fit the meter or the rhythm of the song, but for Christ's sakes, this is ridiculous. You know what I want to know? What is it that none can deny? Or none can be denying? Or whatever. It's certainly not the fact that all men are apparently dying, because number one, they're not. Number two, they use the word for between those two phrases. And for, in this context, would indicate because, or something like that. If they wanted to say that, they'd have said none can be denying that all men are dying. But they didn't. So obviously there's something else that can't be denied, right? But what? That they're all afraid of the dark?
None from the grave his life can save. All men's work is vanity. But the Bible holds out a hope for the dead, that a resurrection for those lies ahead.
The grave isn't actually the thing you'd need to save your life from, is it? Because, I mean, by the time you're in a grave, your life's already kind of a thing of the past, so... Okay, if all man's work is vanity, then what does that make field service? Oh, I'm sure they'd say that that's Jehovah's work, but I say if that's true, then Jehovah needs a good efficiency consultant and probably some coaching. Notice that they don't say that women's work is vanity. Is that because they think women don't work? Or maybe it's because they don't really acknowledge the contributions of women, like ever. Or maybe they don't want the sisters getting the idea that all their cooking and cleaning and pioneering and child rearing is vanity, because then the brothers might have to do some of that shit themselves, and we can't have that. Okay, then we've endured the melodic whiplash again to learn that the Bible holds out a hope for the dead. Now, there's no hope for those awful worldly people blindly groping about in the first verse, but hope for the dead That's a thing. And the hope is, wait for it, the zombie apocalypse. Reanimated corpses everywhere. Such a wonderful hope for people who've already lived their lives. Never mind those losers who are still alive. They don't need hope.
Refreshing fountains of life thou be led. This is the good news that Jehovah has said.
Is life a liquid then? And how come those of us who are, alive have never seen these alleged fountains? And again with the grammar, Jehovah said the good news, y'all. You heard it here. Look, I know that said and led rhyme, I know, but it's still so clunky and unlyrical and just wrong. Let's recap. Jehovah said, through the Watchtower, of course, but he totally said it, the good news that the world is ending and your whole life sucks and everything is dark and scary and all your work is for nothing and almost everybody in the world is going to die. What's good about this again? Oh, the people who are already dead are going to get to be alive again and led through fountains or something, and that's supposed to be great for some reason.
Puffed up with pride, then God deride.
To deride is to express contempt for or ridicule or mock someone or something. Now, I'm not sure that derision toward a God who is supposedly all-powerful and all-knowing, but who does nothing about abuse and slavery and genocide is exactly out of line. And ridicule? Well, if something's ridiculous, then the correct response to it is ridicule. Look, you show me one iota of actual evidence that God exists and that it's in any way benevolent, then I'll change my mind. Until then, the whole idea is ridiculous to me.
With blasphemous slander, incense ways meander.
I always love this line. First, for the creative use of the word meander, and second, because no one I knew could pronounce blasphemous. My mother always said blasphemy, and she and my grandmother sang this line as blasphemous, as in with blasphemous slander, which in a way was kind of easier to sing because of the odd stress the melody puts on the word if you try to say it correctly. So you would normally in English say blasphemous, but the way the song's written, you have to sing it blasphemous. Awful. But what, pray tell, is the blasphemous slander? Well, blasphemy is the act of insulting or showing contempt or lack of reverence to a deity or some sort of sacred object or whatever. And slander is the action or crime of making a false spoken statement damaging to a person's reputation. Okay, so the point here is in order for something to be considered slander, it has to be a lie. I mean, it can't be true. So if someone says that Jehovah's Witnesses effectively protect pedophiles by virtue of their policies on child sexual abuse, that's not slander because it's true. If someone says that Jehovah's Witnesses brainwash their members, that's not slander either because, again, it's true. Do some research on undue influence and mind control techniques and you'll recognize the pattern real quick. If someone says that Jehovah's Witnesses endanger the lives of their followers by prohibiting blood transfusions when there's no reasonable basis for that policy in Scripture, that's not slander either, because that's also true. Or if someone says that according to research, Jehovah's Witnesses have the lowest education level, the lowest incomes, and a higher than average rate of mental illness and suicide, well, that's not slander either, y'all, because it's true. And none of it is blasphemous. It's all directed at people. It's directed at a human organization run by human men. There is no evidence that there's any deity involved anywhere at all, ever. So, go on, get back to your meandering.
Satan holds sway o'er earth today. Wickedness is all around.
You know, this is what annoys me most about Jehovah's Witness ideology. They act as if the entire world is wicked and evil, and they are the only true, pure, safe place where there's no wickedness whatsoever. They would have you believe that any time they uncover any bad behavior or wickedness, they would disfellowship the offender forthwith. But we all know that's not actually how it works. In fact, in my experience, there is much more wickedness on the inside of the kingdom hall than outside. Start with the gossip and the backbiting and the jockeying for position, and then roll on through the nepotism and the sexual repression and obsession cycle they've got going on. And then make sure you have a look at the incessant fear-mongering and the unbelievable level of control. You can get to the blood issue and the child abuse and all that later if you have time. Jehovah's Witnesses are no better than anyone else in the world, no matter what they tell you. In many ways, they're worse because they are so insular and because they are so concerned about their reputation and how they look to outsiders. They regularly sacrifice truth and justice to protect their appearance. And that's the very definition of wicked in my book.
But the Bible tells us that soon there will be judgment from Jehovah, and then all will see. Blotting out of wicked ones eternally, and the meek ones filling the earth joyously.
Oh my God, yay! Judgment from Jehovah! You'll see. You worldly people just wait till your dad gets home. You're gonna get it. Oh yeah, all these wicked worldly people are gonna be blotted out, wiped away like that mess you made on the toilet seat. Because in the Jehovah's Witness mind, what does it actually take to be considered wicked? Well, simply not being a Jehovah's Witness. And who are the meek ones? Why, witnesses, of course. See, this is another example of their redefining common words so that they have their own language almost. It just widens the divide between them and everybody else. Because you can have a conversation with a witness and odds are they're going to hear something other than what you're trying to say because of all these trigger words. So in this song, the trigger words are wicked, which to a normal person means evil or bad, but to a Jehovah's Witness means worldly or not Jehovah's Witness. And then we have meek, which normally means quiet, gentle, or submissive, but to a Jehovah's Witness means Jehovah's Witness, submissive to watchtower. And we've talked about other words in other videos like integrity and loyal. Okay, I gotta do something to get these awful earworms out of my head. I just gotta.
America, America, God shed His grace on thee. Jingle bells, jingle all the way, o'er the land of the free. O holy night, and the home of the brave.